These are additional tools in Halftone Studio. They're not required to create a proper Halftone PNG, but in specific situations, they make your work easier, faster, and more precise. Over time, they become part of your natural workflow. Let's see how they work. Let's start with the Background Knockout Tolerance tool. In the Color Isolation panel, we have an eyedropper that allows us to select the color we want to remove from the image. Right below it, there's a slider called Isolation Range. In most cases, you won't even need to use this tolerance slider. The Levels panel usually handles background removal very well, especially the black slider in the mask, which cuts off everything that shouldn't be printed. So, when is the tolerance slider actually useful? It becomes very helpful when the background is not a flat, solid color, but instead contains different shades and saturation variations of a similar hue. Let's first look at how the tolerance slider behaves using a specially prepared test image. Here we have CMYK and RGB colors with different brightness levels. If we select cyan for knockout and use only the black slider in the Levels panel, you'll notice that colors are removed based mainly on brightness, regardless of hue. But when we use the Isolation Range slider instead, you'll see that cyan is removed first, followed by colors related to it, gradually moving through similar hues, until we eventually reach the opposite color of cyan, which is red in the RGB spectrum. Now let's see how this works in a real halftone example. Here we have a steampunk character in blue and pink tones. The background is yellow-orange, but it contains darker details and tonal variation. If we want to place this design on a garment similar to the current background, we can use the color preset and get good results immediately. But what if we want to print this on a black or white garment? If we use only the black slider in the Levels panel, we start losing important details before the background is fully removed. However, when we use the tolerance slider, we can isolate the background color much more precisely, while preserving fine details in the artwork. The same applies when using the light preset for a white garment. Again, using only the black slider in Levels removes too much detail before the background is fully eliminated. But using the tolerance slider gives us a clean halftone result with full detail preserved. Now let's unlock something powerful, the B&W Conversion tool. At first glance, it might look like the standard black and white adjustment you know from Photoshop. But here's the difference. In Halftone Studio, you're not just converting to grayscale. You're controlling how each color behaves before it becomes halftone. That means total creative control. You can boost selected colors. You can suppress them. You can completely eliminate them, all with a live preview. Here we have a night graffiti scene, perfect for printing on a black garment, so we'll use the dark preset. Now we can, for example, increase the saturation of the original image. Let's boost the blues and magentas to bring out more details in the graffiti wall. Maybe add a bit more red and green as well. Or we can completely remove the green from the image. We could also keep only the green and yellow tones while excluding everything else. And instantly, we get a completely different graphic result. By the way, if any imperfections appear during this process, we can clean them up using the Lasso Tool, which I'll cover later. The B&W Conversion Panel allows us to control how individual colors are translated into grayscale. It can be used creatively to achieve more artistic results, or technically, to precisely control how much of each color influences the final halftone PNG output. Now let's talk about something powerful, Raster Tools. This is where Halftone Studio moves beyond standard halftone generation and into advanced control. Raster tools are designed for special situations, when you want to avoid moiré patterns or when you want to give your halftone a more artistic, unique character. Inside the halftone grid panel, you already know the essentials: dot shape, density in LPI, angle. You also get independent dot thickness control, separate from LPI. That means you can keep your raster density and still change the visual weight of the dots. For example, if your halftone appears too light, made of very thin dots, you can increase the dot thickness to make the raster stronger and more visible. On the other hand, sometimes you want the halftone texture to appear everywhere, even in areas that would normally be solid white or fully filled. Reducing thickness lets you introduce texture without overpowering the design. Now let's open the Raster Tools panel. Here's where things get interesting. You'll find two sliders that control grid wave distortion, wave length, wave frequency. This is not something you typically see in standard halftone workflows. With oval or diamond dot shapes, you can create a more stochastic feel, or even patterns that resemble classic CMYK rosettes. With ellipse or line shapes, you generate flowing, wave-like structures, much more organic, much more artistic. This tool is perfect for advanced users, experimental designs, or simply eliminating unwanted moiré when working with certain fabrics. And finally, clean small dots. This slider removes tiny pixel artifacts that may not print anyway due to their size. Raster tools are not mandatory, but when precision matters, or when you want your halftone to stand out from everyone else's, this is where you take control. Next tool, saturate and unsaturate. Simple, straightforward, useful. This control works on the final alpha channel output, so you're adjusting the file exactly as it will be exported as a PNG for print. There are basically two situations where you'll use it. First, when you want to slightly boost saturation in the final file. Maybe the halftone looks just a bit flat and needs more punch. Of course, always keep CMYK printing limitations in mind. Second, when you want to go the opposite direction, turn a colored result into a clean black and white version. That's it. No complex theory here, just a practical finishing tool for quick final adjustments before export. Next tool, Lasso. Simple, but very useful. The Lasso tool allows you to clean up unwanted pixels directly inside your halftone mask. These might be small artifacts, distracting elements, or leftover edge pixels that interfere with your design. It's especially helpful when those tiny imperfections prevent you from properly using the next tool, Smart Trim. Sometimes you notice small dirty areas only at the final stage. And going back to Photoshop just to fix a few pixels doesn't make much sense. With Lasso, you can remove unwanted areas instantly, right here inside Halftone Studio. Quick cleanup, no extra steps, no switching software. And the next tool, Smart Trim, another simple one, but extremely practical. Smart Trim automatically removes empty areas around your main graphic, so the width you set becomes the actual print width. Here's a simple example. You measure a t-shirt and decide your design should be 12 inches wide. You set the file width to 12 inches, but the graphic only occupies the center of the canvas. That means your final printed design will actually come out much smaller than expected because the empty margins are included in that 12 inches. This is where Smart Trim saves the day. With one click, it removes the empty edges. Now your exported PNG has exactly the width you intended. No guessing, no scaling surprises, just precise sizing. And that's it. These are all the extra tools inside Halftone Studio. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorials.